The massive screen in the United Nations Emergency Assembly Hall flickered to life, casting an eerie purple glow across the faces of Earth's gathered leaders. Ambassador James Miller stood at the central podium, his weathered hands gripping its edges. After decades of watching distant stars and wondering, first contact was finally happening. Just not in the way anyone had expected. The alien that appeared on screen looked almost like a statue carved from blue crystal. Its voice came through the translators with a sound like chimes in the wind. "I am High Speaker Stone of the Galactic Council. We have watched your species for 300 years. The time has come for Earth to join civilization." Miller kept his face carefully neutral, exactly as he had been trained. Behind that mask, his mind raced through the emergency protocols he had memorized years ago. "We are honored by your contact, High Speaker," he said, voice steady and clear. The crystalline being's next words shattered the momentous occasion. "As is standard for all new species, we require a tribute. 30% of your world's resources and workforce will be sufficient as an entry fee to our grand civilization." A murmur ran through the assembly hall. Miller noticed the Russian president's knuckles turning white on her armrest. The Chinese premier's face had gone completely still, but no one spoke. They all knew their roles. "Such a request requires careful consideration," Miller replied, maintaining his diplomatic tone. "Our world systems are complex and interlinked. We would need time to study the implications." The alien's crystalline form sparkled as it moved. "You have 48 Earth hours to begin the tribute process. We have prepared receiving stations in your solar system's outer zone." Its tone grew harder. "Do not test our patience. Lesser species who refused found their planet's surfaces quite changed by our response." The screen went dark. For 10 long seconds, nobody moved. Then Miller pressed a small red button on the podium. Special forces quietly entered the room, and all electronic devices were collected. Only after the security sweep did anyone speak. The U.S. President stood first. "Time to call the real meeting." She looked at the others. "See you all downstairs." Deep beneath the UN building, in a chamber shielded by technologies that didn't officially exist, Earth's leaders gathered around a different table. The room looked nothing like the polished hall above. Its walls were bare metal, and holographic displays showed real-time data from secret installations across the planet. Miller took off his ambassador's jacket and dropped into a chair. "Well, they're exactly as arrogant as we expected." "Did you see any signs of the weaknesses our probes detected?" asked the Indian Prime Minister. "Yes," Miller nodded. "Their translator used quantum harmonics, just like our analysis predicted. Their ships will be vulnerable to our countermeasures." The Russian president smiled slightly. 300 years they've watched us. All that time, thinking we didn't know they were there. Thinking we were just stumbling forward by chance. Their biggest mistake was watching us through their own lens, the Chinese premier added. "They see a species that just reached space, arguing about climate change, and fighting small wars. They don't understand that's exactly what we wanted them to see." Screens around the room lit up with status reports from hidden facilities. "Quantum fleet, ready. Dimensional shields, charge. Eye defense networks, alert. Underground cities, prepared. Every piece put in place over generations, hidden beneath a carefully crafted mask of a divided, struggling species." The U.S. president stood at the head of the table. "Our ancestors began preparing for this day the moment they detected the Council's first probe. For 3 centuries, we've hidden our true progress, shown them what they expected to see. Now they've finally made their move." She looked around the table. "The question is, do we proceed with Operation Oracle?" Miller thought about the aliens' threats, its casual assumption of superiority. He thought about centuries of preparation, of humanity's hidden strength. He smiled. "I think it's time to teach the galaxy what happens when you try to bully the human race." The leaders of Earth nodded in agreement. Above them, the world went about its business, seemingly unaware of the threat. Just as planned. Admiral Thomas walked through the hidden base, deep within Mount Everest, his footsteps echoing off walls made of metal that didn't officially exist. Screens lining the corridor showed real-time data from Earth's secret defense network. Everything was going according to plan, even if that plan was 3 centuries old. He entered the command center, where dozens of operators worked at stations monitoring humanity's true military strength. The room's central hologram showed thousands of ships hidden in quantum space, invisible to the Council's primitive scanners. "Status report," he ordered. His second-in-command, Captain Reed, stepped forward with a tablet. "All hidden fleets are ready, sir. The Council's ships haven't detected any of our quantum signatures. They still think we're limited to chemical rockets and a few basic ion engines." Thomas nodded, walking to the main display. With a wave of his hand, he brought up images of Earth's true defensive capabilities. "Show me the polar installations." The hologram shifted to show massive underground complexes beneath both poles. Quantum cannons, dimensional shields, and AI-driven defense systems lay ready but invisible to the aliens above. The Council's scans couldn't penetrate the special materials developed over centuries just for this purpose. "They have no idea what they're walking into," Reed said with a slight smile. That was the point. Thomas brought up another display showing the Council's ships. "Look at their design. All flash and show. They built their ships to look impressive, to frighten less advanced races. We built ours to win fights." A young lieutenant rushed into the room. "Admiral, we're receiving updates from our deep space probes. The Council is moving more ships into the system." Thomas checked the data and smiled. The Council ships were positioning themselves exactly where Earth's defense plans had predicted they would. 300 years of watching the Council's behavior patterns had made them predictable. "Send word to the underground cities," he ordered. "Begin final preparation phase. But keep it quiet. Let's not spoil the surprise." Deep beneath every major city on Earth, vast spaces had been hollowed out and prepared over generations. Enough room for every human to survive underground if needed, though Thomas doubted it would come to that. The Council wasn't nearly as powerful as they pretended to be. Captain Reed checked another report. "Sir, our AI systems have finished analyzing their quantum translator. We can shut it down any time we want. They'll lose all ability to communicate." "Good." Thomas walked to the window overlooking the vast underground hangar where Earth's real ships waited. They were sleek, deadly, and powered by technology the Council couldn't imagine. What about the civilian ships? All civilian vessels have their hidden weapons systems ready. The Council thinks they're looking at simple trade ships and atmosphere shuttles. They have no idea each one carries enough firepower to destroy one of their cruisers. Thomas remembered his grandfather's words from years ago. "The best weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know exists." Earth had taken that lesson to heart, hiding its true power beneath a carefully crafted mask of primitive technology and political division. "Sir," Reed said quietly, "the Council gave us 48 hours. Should we reveal ourselves sooner?" "No." Thomas shook his head. "We stick to the plan. Let them think we're scrambling to respond, maybe even fighting among ourselves about what to do. The more overconfident they become, the better this works." He looked at the display showing the Council ships again, remembering all the generations of humans who had worked in secret to prepare for this moment. The Council thought they were dealing with a primitive species that had just reached space. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Humanity has waited 300 years to answer their arrogance," Thomas said. "We can wait another day. After all, the best part of any surprise is the timing." Fleet Commander Wilson stood on the observation deck of the Star Trader, watching as hundreds of civilian ships moved through Earth's orbit. To any outside observer, it looked like panic. Merchants and traders rushing to get their ships to safety before the Council's deadline. In reality, it was a carefully planned dance. "Status of the merchant fleet retrofits," she asked the air. The ship's AI responded instantly. 70% complete, Commander. All weapon systems are properly masked. Council scans will only detect standard cargo holds and life support systems. Wilson smiled. The Council's arrogance had made this almost too easy. They never bothered to look too closely at civilian ships. Why would they? In their experience, primitive species like humans couldn't possibly hide advanced weapons in plain sight. Her communication screen lit up with an incoming call from Earth. "Commander," the ground controller said, We have another group of refugees ready for evacuation to Mars. Wilson nodded. The refugees were actually elite combat teams being positioned throughout the solar system. The Council would see exactly what they expected: scared humans fleeing from their mighty presence. Send them up, she ordered. Make it look messy. A few ships should drift off course. Show some panic. Yes, Commander. Also, the public news channels are showing the protests as planned. Wilson switched her screen to Earth's news broadcasts. Right on schedule, crowds were gathering in major cities, waving signs and demanding their governments either fight or submit to the Council. All carefully orchestrated, of course. The protesters were mostly military personnel and their families, putting on a show for any watching aliens. The observation deck's door slid open, and her chief engineer walked in. "Ma'am, you should see this," he said, handing her a tablet. The Council just posted their tribute collectors near Jupiter. They're broadcasting their capabilities as a warning. Wilson checked the data and had to hold back a laugh. The Council ships were impressive looking, all gleaming metal and visible weapon ports, and completely vulnerable to the quantum disruption fields that Earth's ships have been using for decades. "How are the civilian captains handling the hidden systems?" she asked. "Better than expected. 300 years of preparation means even our merchant fleet trains for this scenario. Every captain knows exactly what to do when the signal comes." A light flashed on Wilson's console. Another group of Council ships entering the system. They were positioning themselves in a standard intimidation formation, one they'd used on countless other worlds. Wilson had studied recordings of those encounters for years at the Academy. "They're so predictable," she murmured. "Always the same tactics. Always the same assumptions." Her AI chimed in again. "Commander, the underground city in Sydney reports full readiness. New York and Tokyo will complete preparations in 3 hours." Below them, Earth continued its act. News channels showed panicked markets and emergency government meetings. Social media buzzed with fearful discussions about the alien demand. Military units made very visible preparations for a hopeless defense. And deep beneath the surface, in hidden bunkers and secret bases, humanity's real power waited. Quantum weapons that could slice through Council shields like paper. AI systems that could hack and disable alien tech in seconds. Dimensional drives that made their ships' fastest engines look like horse carts. Wilson's tablet beeped. A message from Admiral Thomas. "Keep up the show. 24 hours until we give them our answer." She looked out at her fleet again. From the outside, they looked like simple trading ships running scared. Inside, they were the deadliest warships ever built by human hands. The Council was about to learn a very expensive lesson about judging by appearances. "Send word to all ships," Wilson ordered. "Continue normal operations. Look scared. Act weak." She smiled. "And be ready for the most one-sided battle in human history." High Speaker Stone stood in the Grand Council chamber, his crystalline form catching the light from 3 different suns streaming through the massive windows. Around him, representatives from 1,000 worlds watched the holographic display of Earth. "As you can see," Stone said, gesturing at images of panicked humans, "they react just like all primitive species. Fear, confusion, and the beginning of submission." The Council members nodded in agreement, except for one. Elder Gray sat in his ancient seat, his gray-skinned face showing concern. He was the oldest being in the chamber, representing a race that had joined the Council 5,000 years ago. "I see something different," Elder Gray said quietly. His words caused the chamber to fall silent. When the Elder spoke, even High Speaker Stone had to listen. "What concerns you, Elder?" Stone asked, trying to hide his annoyance. "They are barely past their first space stations. Their most advanced ships use simple ion engines. We detect no quantum technology, no dimensional fields, no AI networks." Elder Gray stood slowly, his ancient eyes fixed on the Earth display. "That's what bothers me. Look at their history. Every time they faced a challenge, they made huge leaps forward. But for the last 100 years, their progress has been too steady, too predictable." A younger Council member laughed. "They waste time fighting among themselves. Half their world protests against their own governments even now. Perhaps Elder Gray moved closer to the display. Or perhaps that is what they want us to see. My race. He paused, looking troubled. My race once sent a scout fleet to Earth. This was 3 centuries ago, before they reached space. The fleet vanished without a trace. Murmurs filled the chamber. Stone's crystalline form flickered with annoyance. Why was this not reported to the council? Pride. Elder Gray said simply. We were embarrassed. We told ourselves our ships must have failed naturally. But now, he pointed to the display showing Earth's polar regions. Look at these energy readings. They pulse in a pattern that seems random. Solar interference. Stone dismissed. Their primitive sensors can't even detect it. No, Elder Gray shook his head. The pattern is too precise, and it changed the moment we entered their system. He turned to face the council. I think we are looking at a mask, fellow members. A very carefully crafted mask. Stone was about to respond when a junior observer rushed into the chamber. High Speaker. We've detected unusual readings from the human civilian ships. What readings? Stone demanded. For a moment, our sensors picked up something, but it vanished so quickly, our systems marked it as an error. Elder Gray's eyes narrowed. Show me. The display changed to show a simple human trading vessel. For a fraction of a second, there was a flicker of energy that shouldn't exist on such a primitive ship. Just an error, Stone insisted. But his crystalline form had lost some of its sparkle. High Speaker, Elder Gray said softly, did you know that humans have a concept called playing possum? It comes from a small animal that pretends to be dead when threatened, but the moment its predator lets down its guard. He let the words hang in the air. The chamber had grown very quiet. The display still showed Earth, still showed panicked humans and primitive technology. But now some council members were looking at those images with new eyes. You suggest, Stone said stiffly, that a primitive species has fooled the entire council. Impossible. I suggest, Elder Gray replied, that we have made an assumption. We assumed that because they appeared primitive, they must be primitive. We assumed that because they showed fear, they must be afraid. He looked around the chamber. And I wonder what price we will pay for those assumptions. High Speaker Stone stared at the display of Earth, his confidence shaken for the first time in centuries. They had given the humans 48 hours to submit their response. 24 hours remained until they learned if Elder Gray's fears were justified. The great council chamber buzzed with excitement. Representatives from over 1,000 worlds filled every seat, their varied forms creating a living rainbow of colors and shapes. The moment of Earth's response had arrived. High Speaker Stone stood at the central platform, his crystalline form radiating confidence. Bring up the human transmission, he commanded. The massive holographic display activated, showing Ambassador Miller standing at a simple podium. The human looked appropriately nervous, or so Stone thought. Honorable Council, Miller began, his voice steady despite his apparent fear. Humanity has considered your demand for tribute. He paused, holding up a small data card. Our response has been carefully prepared. Stone's crystalline form sparkled with satisfaction. Another primitive race brought to heel. Proceed with your acceptance, human. Miller looked directly into the camera. A small smile appeared on his face. Our response is one word. He held up the card. No. For a moment, the chamber was completely silent. Then chaos erupted. What did he say? Impossible. They dare. They cannot refuse. Stone's form flickered with rage. You dare to refuse the council. You understand the consequences. Miller's smile grew slightly wider. Oh, we understand perfectly. He looked down at his watch. In fact, you should be getting some interesting reports right about. Multiple emergency alerts suddenly lit up the chamber. Council members began shouting in panic as reports flooded in. High Speaker. Unknown ships appearing throughout council space. Our quantum networks are being disrupted. Defense stations going dark. We're detecting energy signatures that shouldn't exist. In orbit around every major council world, massive ships emerged from quantum space. They weren't the primitive vessels the Council had seen before. These were sleek, deadly warships that radiated power beyond anything the Council possessed. Elder Gray stood slowly, looking at Miller with newfound respect. "You were never primitive, were you?" "No," Miller replied simply. "We detected your first probe 300 years ago. We've been preparing ever since." He gestured, and the chamber's displays showed Earth's ships dropping their disguises. Cargo vessels transformed into battleships. Simple shuttles revealed weapon systems that made Council technology look ancient. "Impossible," Stone shouted. "We watched you. We saw your development. You saw what we wanted you to see," Miller explained calmly. "Every advancement carefully planned. Every technology revealed at just the right pace to seem natural. Every conflict and protest staged to make us look divided and weak." Admiral Thomas appeared beside Miller in the transmission. "Your ships are currently surrounded by our fleet. Your quantum communications are under our control. Your defense networks have been shut down. We could end this violently." He paused. "But we'd rather not." The Council chamber had gone very quiet. Stone's crystalline form had lost all its sparkle, now looking dull and lifeless. "What do you want?" he asked finally. Miller's expression turned serious. "We want what we've always wanted. Peaceful cooperation between equals. Not submission. Not tribute. Friendship freely given, or none at all." Elder Gray began to laugh, a sound that hadn't been heard in the chamber for centuries. "Magnificent. All this time, we thought we were testing you, but you were testing us." "Yes," Miller nodded. "And now you have a choice. We can be allies or enemies, partners or adversaries, but we will never, ever be your servants." Stone looked around the chamber, at the faces of Council members who now looked to him for guidance rather than commands. He looked at the displays showing Earth's true power, carefully hidden for 3 centuries. And for the first time in his long life, High Speaker Stone did something he had never done before. He bowed. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "it is time for the Council to change." The Council's emergency session stretched into its 6th hour. On massive screens around the chamber, evidence of humanity's true capabilities continued to pour in. Each revelation struck like a hammer blow to the Council's pride. Elder Gray stood at the center of the chamber, addressing the stunned representatives. "3 centuries ago, my people sent a fleet to Earth. We thought we were being clever, approaching from what humans call the Kuiper Belt." He paused, his ancient face showing a mix of pain and admiration. "Our ships simply vanished. No distress calls. No debris. They were simply gone." High Speaker Stone, his crystalline form still dulled by shock, spoke quietly. "Why didn't you report this?" "Pride," Gray admitted. "And fear. We told ourselves it must have been a natural disaster. The alternative was too frightening to consider." He gestured at the displays. "Now we know the truth. Humanity had quantum technology before they officially discovered nuclear power." The screen showed new images, massive underground cities that could house Earth's entire population, orbital platforms that had appeared primitive but contained world-ending weapons, civilian ships transforming into warships that made Council vessels look like toys. Admiral Thomas appeared on the main screen, standing in a control room that hummed with power the Council had thought impossible for humans to harness. "Let me be clear," he said. "Everything you saw for 300 years was carefully planned. Every technological advancement, every political conflict, every scientific breakthrough, all carefully timed to show you exactly what you expected to see." A Council member from a silicon-based race spoke up. "But why? If you had this power, why hide it?" "Because we wanted to avoid war," Thomas explained. "We saw how the Council treated primitive races, demanding tribute, forcing submission. We could have fought you then, but that would have meant millions of deaths on both sides." The displays changed again, showing Earth's true defensive capabilities, quantum shields that could absorb any known weapon, AI systems that could predict and counter any attack strategy, dimensional technology that made faster-than-light travel look slow. "Impossible," shouted a Council member. "These advances take thousands of years." Elder Gray laughed softly. "Unless you're human. Did none of you study their history? In less than 70 years, they went from primitive flight to walking on their moon. In 200 years, they went from steam engines to quantum computers. The chamber fell silent as Fleet Commander Wilson appeared beside Thomas in the transmission. "We're not showing you this to threaten you," she said. "We're showing you because it's time for honesty between equals." Stone moved closer to the display. "Your people maintained this deception for 3 centuries. Every human on Earth knew their role. Children grew up knowing they had to hide their world's true power. How is this possible?" Thomas smiled. "We turned your greatest weapon against you, your own arrogance. You saw what you expected to see, a primitive species, slowly advancing, fighting among themselves. You never looked deeper because you never imagined you needed to." "And now?" Stone asked. "Now we can stop pretending," Wilson answered. "Now we can be what we always wanted to be, partners in making the galaxy a better place. No tributes, no submission, just different species working together as equals." Elder Gray turned to face the council. "I suggest we take this offer very seriously. Humanity could have destroyed us at any time in the past 3 centuries. Instead, they chose patience. They chose peace." He smiled. "Perhaps it's time we learned from them." The council chamber buzzed with quiet discussion as the members considered this new reality. On the screens, Earth's true face was finally revealed, not a primitive world struggling to reach the stars, but a technological giant that had hidden in plain sight for 3 centuries, and done it all to avoid a war they would have won. 1 month after humanity's revelation, the council chamber looked very different. The raised platform where High Speaker Stone had once looked down on others was gone. In its place stood a circular table, with Earth's representatives sitting as equals among the council members. Ambassador Miller watched as Stone signed the new Galactic Cooperation Treaty with steady hands. The crystalline being's form had regained some of its sparkle, but it was a softer light now, without the harsh brightness of arrogance. "With this signature," Stone announced, "we officially end the era of tribute and begin an age of true partnership between species." Admiral Thomas, standing near the chamber's great windows, smiled as he watched council ships and Earth vessels conducting joint exercises in space. The council's ships still looked impressive, but now they were being upgraded with human technology freely shared. "Quite a change from a month ago," Elder Gray said, moving to stand beside Thomas. "Though I must ask, what would you have done if we had refused your offer of peace?" Thomas's smile faded slightly. "We had other plans. The quantum fleet you saw was only our first line of defense. There were contingencies we thankfully didn't need to use." In orbit above the council world, Fleet Commander Wilson stood on her ship's observation deck, watching alien children touring Earth vessels. The youngsters gasped in wonder as human crews demonstrated technology that their parents had never imagined possible. "It's better this way," Wilson said to her crew. "Sharing knowledge instead of hiding it. Teaching instead of pretending." The main screen showed scenes from across the galaxy. Council worlds and Earth working together, sharing discoveries, and learning from each other. Even Stone's people had discovered that their crystalline forms could interface with human quantum systems in ways neither species had expected. Back in the chamber, Miller addressed the assembled representatives. "For centuries, we watched you demand tribute from other races. We saw you take their resources, their workers, their freedom. We could have stopped you by force." He paused, looking around the room. "Instead, we chose to show you a better way." Stone nodded slowly. "By pretending to be weak, you taught us the strongest lesson of all. That true power lies not in domination, but in patience and wisdom." Elder Gray laughed softly. "And in having quantum weapons hidden in your cargo ships, yes." The chamber filled with laughter, a sound that would have been unthinkable in the old days. Even Stone's crystalline form chimed with amusement. "The galaxy is changing," Miller continued. "Already, 17 worlds that left the Council over its tribute demands have asked to return. They see what we're building together, a true alliance of equals." Thomas moved to the great window, watching ships from 100 worlds moving peacefully through space. 300 years of hiding, of watching our words, of playing a role. It was worth it. "And now?" Stone asked. What do humans plan to do with their remarkable capabilities? Miller smiled. Exactly what we always wanted to do. Explore the galaxy, learn its mysteries, and make new friends, just as equals this time, not as servants or masters. The chamber's displays showed Earth, no longer hiding its true face. The great underground cities were now centers of learning where species from across the galaxy came to study. The quantum fleet patrolled space not to threaten, but to protect. And in laboratories and research centers across the planet, humans worked side by side with alien scientists, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. One word changed the galaxy, Elder Gray mused. No, such a simple thing. Sometimes, Miller replied, the simplest answers are the most powerful. As the sun set on another day in the new galaxy, ships from Earth and the Council flew together through the stars. Their crews no longer thought about tribute or submission or power. They thought only of what they could achieve together, as equals in the vast expanse of space.